Hello, everyone, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Better the Pond Pondcast, where we talk to amazing people doing incredible things that lead the charge of generosity. My name is Warren Berry, and I'm your host and the founder of Instinctive Solutions, where we believe that everyone is an odd duck, but that's what makes them awesome. Today, our guest is Theo Fleury. Stand by the net, and I will get you the puck. Even as a kid playing minor hockey in Russell, Manitoba, Theo was setting people up for success. He's doing the same thing today, but instead of passing the puck, he is passing on hope, confidence, understanding, and compassion. Theo's tumultuous background has given him the gift of adversity and the courage to be truly vulnerable and to inspire others to do the same. Theo collects people and helps them keep their light lit, even when they want to extinguish it themselves. Theo is creating truly magical ripples in our pond, and the pond is better because he is in it. Ladies and gentlemen, Theo Fleury. Theo Fleury, NHL Hockey All-Star, Olympic gold medal winner, best-selling in hockey history by far, musician, author of Man on Fire, motivational speaker, and the proudest Métis person in Canada. Thank you so much for your time to be a guest on my Better the Pond podcast. It's great to have you, Theo.
Yeah, thank you, Warren. I always appreciate the opportunity to chat.
All right, so let's just jump right into this. So Theo, I want to know what got you from being a gosling. So we're gonna go back to back to Oxbow, Saskatchewan, right? Then into your, you got the borrowed skates and a broken hockey stick, right? To leaving the nest, right? So you went on your little hockey journey, and to where you are today, right? Where you're standing on stage and you're telling your story and you're inspiring people. So I want to spend a little bit of time, Theo, just give us a bit of your backstory.
Yeah, well, I was born in Oxbow, Saskatchewan, almost 53 years ago. And, my mom and dad met in a small town. And about a year later, I showed up on the scene. And my dad was a pretty incredible hockey player, too. And so, the early part of my life was spent, traveling to different places because my dad was sort of a hired gun in the senior hockey world. And so we moved out to Williams Lake for a while and then came back to the prairies and settled in a little community of about 300 people called Binscarth, Manitoba. And, that's when I discovered hockey for the first time. And, I remember that day quite well because, it would become, a common theme in my story, which was hockey. And, I have no recollection of ever putting on a pair of skates or any equipment at that point in my life. And, I went down to the rink and put all this gear on, stepped on the ice, and, the rest is basically history. Because that day I fell in love with the game and then just, continued to, develop this God-given ability and talent. And it's no secret that both my parents struggled with addiction. And so I grew up in a home with a lot of chaos and, all that kind of stuff. And so hockey was, was my sanctuary, it was my happy place. And it was a big catalyst for me to want to be at the rink and want to, develop skill and practice. And, I subscribe to the Malcolm Gladwell theory of 10,000 hours. And so, that little rink in Russell, Manitoba, is where I put in those 10,000 hours. I started playing there when I was 6 and I left when I was 15. And, every waking moment when I wasn't at school, I was at the rink or the ball field, skating, shooting, passing, and, and all those things. And so when I left home, I was, uh, a phenomenal hockey player. And, I think the greatest thing that I had to overcome was my size. And you know, I wish I had a dollar for every time somebody told me that I was too small and I was never going to make it, because I wouldn't have to play in the NHL.
Well, what's really interesting, Theo, I can cut you off there because, I go back to Malcolm Gladwell, and I agree with the 10,000 hours. One of the interesting things that he came up with as well, and it was the book Outliers, was the great athletes typically were born in January. They were January babies, right? Which gave them that edge, right?
Yeah.
And you're a June baby, right? And happy birthday in a week, by the way.
Thanks.
But you were the June baby, right? So interesting enough, right? You didn't fit into that mold, right? You were halfway through the
But
year.
I've never fit into any mold. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's funny when different people in hockey compare me to other people who have come after me, and I just laugh at myself and I say, you know what? There is no comparison. You know, there was only one of me. I played a certain way, a certain style that I don't think has ever been emulated by any
Mm-hmm.
small player. Maybe Marty St. Louis probably has come the closest. Maybe Brad Marchand with not as much offensive talent and ability, but I don't think there's anybody been since me that came into the game and paved the way for all these, the Cole Caulfields and the Matt Suzuki's of the world that are having success, Johnny Gaudreau, these kind of guys. But, the game changed and evolved to the point where small players could be effective players without having to be physical and all those things. Because when I played, it was like going to the Calgary Stampede every night, and everybody ropes and everybody rides, because it was clutch and grab, and they had the neutral zone trap going on at that time, and so it was hard to play, and they called less penalties, so there was a lot more slashing, and you go stand in front of the net on the power play and you're getting cross-checked in the back and guys are breaking sticks over your back, and the referees aren't calling any penalties. And so I often say it would be kind of cool to see those smaller guys, see them in the era that that we played in, and see how successful they would be.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? 'Cause, I mean, the game is, I mean, I agree, it's totally changed and for when you played to where it is now. When you were back when you were little, I mean, this is interesting because I'm going to go back to the Malcolm Gladwell bit too, because I mean, I was saying about a January baby has the edge and they get better coaching and whatnot. Here you are from small town Manitoba, right? You're probably, I'm assuming you played shinny at the outdoor rink, right? And then you got to playing in the
Well,
indoor.
we played shinny at the rink
Yeah.
because the rink was always available. You know what I mean? So, uh, and you know, there'd be 50 guys that show up for shinny, and ranging from 50 years old to 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And we played 25 on 25. There was no shifts. There was no nothing, right? And
Yep.
and so that was hugely beneficial for me, because the game's really about playing in small spaces,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned, playing with bigger, stronger, faster guys that um, you know that it was hugely beneficial for me to, and that's what I always tell parents all the time when they're asking me about advice about where their kids should be playing. And I say all the time, your kid should play at the highest level he can possibly play at, because it's going to give him the most opportunities to get better.
Mm-hmm.
He's either going to get better or he's not. And if he doesn't get better, then he might want to do something else,
Yeah.
right? Because when you're playing against bigger, faster, older kids, and you're able to still be the best player on the ice, then that's a pretty good indication that that you will have a future, in the game.
Do you think that, outside of your God-given talent, your dad was a good hockey player, so there was a bit of that whole genetic thing that goes on. But do you think that your natural skill that made you the player that you were came from playing shinny? Because yeah, you're playing in tight spaces, and I used to do the same thing. Yeah,
Mhm.
25 and 25, I lived it too.
Yeah.
And but or was it, did it get into your coaching when you were young to be able to teach you actually how to play the game? Like, where do you think where did your edge come from, Theo?
Uh, well, I think it came from the adversity that I faced in my life, and that adversity built resilience in me. And, um, I would say my greatest asset was I competed at the highest level.
Hmm.
And, I hated to lose. And I was willing to do whatever it took to win. And, um, I played for 9 years in Russell, and I played with the same 13 guys and the same three coaches for those 9 years. And, what happened was, I got the blueprint for success early on in my life because we are an amazing team. And, we won three provincial championships in hockey and three provincial championships in baseball with the same people.
Hmm.
And so, as I started to climb the ladder, playing junior, and then, winning World Junior, a Turner Cup, a Stanley Cup, Canada Cup, Olympic gold medal, right? All of that, you know, was already in my DNA because of the experience I had playing minor hockey. That I knew how to win and I knew how to be, you know, uh, I knew it was very easy for me to uh, go into a situation and define my role very quickly, right?
Hmm.
And and that role changed. It would change throughout my career. When I played for Team Canada, I usually was a fourth line guy, so that's an easy role to play, right? Because you're playing three or four shifts a period. There's no expectations for you to score. It's more about momentum swings, momentum changes, providing energy, a spark for the team. So that was a
Hmm.
real easy role for me to play, and it was a big reason why I was picked on all those teams is because I didn't really have an ego. I didn't care. I just wanted to be part of a winning opportunity and a winning situation, and you know, had a lot of those, with Hockey Canada and the Hockey Canada program. And so, yeah, it's just, um, but, I always credit, that first experience I had as, setting me up for the rest of my life because, once you have the blueprint for success, uh, you have it for the rest of your life. And so, when I left the game, uh, you know, finding something I was passionate about, post career, I use that blueprint every day, and being an entrepreneur and being a speaker and being a, you know, inspiration for people, it's the same blueprint. It doesn't change.
Were you that, looking back to what you're doing now, and your motivational speaking, you're inspiring people, right? You're connecting with people. Were you, looking back, were you that same kid back then who did that you sparked the team, you picked up your other players, you got them going, you kind of stirred the pot, shall we say, in a positive way? Were you doing the same thing back then as really what you're doing now? Is it sort of the same thing played out?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing about Russell was if you had a set of hockey gear and you're 6 years old and you lived in Russell, Manitoba, you're on the team. There's no tryouts, right? And
Yeah.
so, um, those first few years, we had a lot of difference in skill level, right?
Hmm.
And, um, I was the kind of guy that I would tell whatever two wingers I was playing with, just go stand beside the net and I'll get you the puck. And these guys would have, empty nets to put the puck in. But what it did, it created confidence in them. And that confidence, spurred them to be better, right? To work harder, um, to get to a point where they could contribute, on a game to game basis. And so, a lot of those guys were skating on their ankles, at the beginning of that first season. And by the time I had left, all these guys were getting tryouts to junior hockey teams and all that. But more importantly, I was the only guy out of that group that actually made it to the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
But, those 13 guys, if you look at what they're doing now, we're all successful guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever field that we chose or path we chose, we're all successful because we had that winning experience, together for all those years.
It's something you said is really interesting to me, Theo, because of knowing your story, and I'm sure a lot of the audience knows your story as well. But back then as a kid, and you could have been 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old playing, Adam and all, right. And you said to them, stand by the net and I'll give you the puck and I'll let you score. Right. I'll set you up for success. I will help inspire you. I will give you the confidence. And I really relate that now to your story about the guy with the book to his chest.
Yeah.
He says me too.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You're passing him the puck and give him the confidence to move forward, right? You're doing the same thing then as you're doing now. And I think it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. And, this isn't conscious, this is just, me being me I subscribe to, the honesty, openness, willingness stuff. Right. And, uh, and in 2009, when the book came out, I had no idea what the hell I was doing or what I was getting myself into. The simple fact that I needed to tell my story has turned into all of this. I realized, shortly after that this was part of my plan, right? That each and every one of us has a destiny and a plan and a purpose. And, by me being honest about what happened and all that, what it did is it created safety, created a safe space in the world for other people who had the same experience as me, to find the courage to find their own voice. And that was 13 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's still to this day, we get 2-3 emails or some private messages on social media with people, saying that, they've either read my book or seen my documentaries or, listened to a podcast or whatever. And, it gave them that inspiration to tell their own story.
It's interesting. You answered one of the questions I was actually going to ask you was, do you feel that you were destined to live your path?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Healing is a 3-step process. It's physical, it's emotional, and it's spiritual. And, those of us who, choose a path of healing, you're going to ebb and flow between those 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
But the most significant thing for me has been the spirituality. And when I grasped onto the concept of, a God of my own understanding, I've been on a spiritual journey for about 10 years now. And what I've done is I've found so much healing and understanding in the Aboriginal spirituality, because I've had the opportunity to visit 420 of the 630 First Nations communities in Canada. And, it's those people that have given me my back my life spiritually, because I started to participate in ceremony and I started to speak to medicine men and spiritual teachers and elders and all that stuff. And it's really taken my life to the next level of peace, joy, happiness, and serenity, because that's the goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
People who suffer with trauma, mental health, addiction, that's the end goal,
Mm-hmm.
is peace, joy, happiness, and serenity. And how do I get there? Well, I think you get there by practicing some sort of spirituality, whatever feels right and feels good to you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because my biggest fear is being alone. And when I'm practicing spirituality, I'm never alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's always something there that's guiding me to the next, phase of my life, or the next uh, layer of trauma that I need to work on, right? And that's really important in all this. And if you look at where we're at in the world right now,
Mm-hmm.
it's all trauma stuff. This is all trauma. It's all trauma based.
Yep.
And every single issue we have in society starts with trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and if you just do a little bit of background on the people, in Ottawa, in Washington, in China, and, all these leaders, you know, they have unresolved trauma,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And the worst addiction to have is the addiction to power,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're seeing it played out in real time right now, you know. And COVID-19 is the most traumatic event that's happened since World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And so the majority of the planet already has trauma. Well, we've just added another layer of trauma.
Yeah.
And, we've isolated because of lockdowns. We're afraid to leave the house because we might catch this, or, whatever it is, we got to wear masks, so, um, and, they say, if you think about the past, that's depression. And if you think about the future, that's anxiety.
Right.
And, I'm an empath. And so I feel energy. It's why I'm so good at what I do, is because I can uh, feel, those people that I'm working with, I can feel their energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so because we don't know what the future holds, the whole entire planet is living in a very high state of anxiety. And when I walk out the door every day, I can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel it. And so leadership on the planet isn't doing anything to provide any hope or any, resolution or whatever. It's just more fear, more fear, more fear.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God, I have a really good spiritual base to know that, God wins
Mm-hmm.
every time. And so I've had to lean, you know, way more than I ever have on my faith. And, the world, I think, um, doesn't have a whole lot of faith right now. We've been separated from, they're closing down churches, they're arresting ministers,
Mm-hmm.
so, there's a real attempt to take God out of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take God out of the equation, what happens? Chaos, violence, you know, insanity, and that's what we're seeing being played out. And so, because I have a very deep faith-based approach to life, I'm not afraid.
think you said a couple of really interesting things there, Theo. Is one, we know that addiction breeds isolation. That's what addicts do. They isolate,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so, and the opposite of isolation, right, is really spirituality because you're never alone. So
Yeah.
there's the other piece which I think is brilliant, and the other piece is, I mean, just from my behalf, I want to thank you because in the time of leadership where I think I agree with you that it's breeding fear and it's breeding anxiety, and I'm with you 100%, and I understand what you're talking about, energy as well. So I do want to thank you because you can be that leader that is providing a place of safety
Yep.
versus fear, right? And it's, I mean, good on you for taking on that role to be that person, because
Right.
right, and I'm sure it's not an
But
easy
but
task.
here's how I see it. You can't put anything on my plate that I haven't seen before,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
You know,
Yep.
I've experienced abuse in the first half of my life. And you know what happened is that abuse or that adversity built resilience in me.
Hmm.
And when you have resilience, there isn't nothing you can't get through, right? And I think that's the biggest obstacle when I'm teaching or speaking or running a group is getting these people to realize that there's a reason why you're facing this kind of adversity is because God, Allah, Buddha, Jehovah, whatever the hell you want to call it, is giving you something that is actually a gift. Because once you overcome adversity and build resilience in yourself, there's nothing that anybody can do or put in front of you that you're not going to figure out a
Hmm.
way to turn, you know, chicken shit into chicken salad, right? You know,
Yeah.
because, you know, it's about taking something negative and turning it into a positive, right? And it's like, you know, for years, people told me, you're never, ever going to make it because you're too small.
Hmm.
Well, I don't look in the same mirror as you,
Yeah.
right? Because when I
Right.
look in the mirror, I don't see somebody who's small.
Right.
I see somebody who's going to work hard, who's going to compete, who's going to be a good teammate, all of these intangibles that the analytics world can't predict, right?
Right.
So they
Absolutely.
project, they project, they project, they project, they project, right? And so what I always tell people, don't listen to the noise, believe in yourself. Because if you believe in yourself, all the naysayers and deniers will eventually believe, right?
Right.
Because when I went to my first training camp in Calgary, you know, the whole entire organization was thinking that I would be a great minor league player that would put asses in the seats, in wherever the team played.
Yeah.
And, you know, and all I ever wanted was an opportunity, right?
Hmm.
And, with that opportunity, by the time I left my first training camp, all those non-believers were now believers.
Proved him
And I
wrong.
got my first pro contract and, was a captain of the world junior team that Christmas. Then I went to Salt Lake City after my junior season was over. We won the Turner Cup, you know,
Hmm.
and then went to training camp the following year, got sent to the minors. I was the leading scorer in the International League, got called up January 1st, 1989. And then 6 months later was carrying the Stanley Cup around the Montreal Forum with, Lanny McDonald, you know?
And I think that's, Theo, it's interesting because, it's what I call the gift in the ugly box, right? It's a gift that, the situation that occurred in your life, right, which is the ugly box, right?
Yeah.
But the gift inside the ugly box is something that most people don't see. And until you actually open up the box, you'll never know that it's there, right?
Yeah.
Everybody keeps looking at the outside. So you've been given the gift of the ugly box.
Yeah,
And
for
one of,
sure.
one of the things I want to move on with, Theo, is because I have a few more questions for you, and we want to be a good steward of time today.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so if you alluded to it earlier, I believe that we're all odd ducks. I believe that we're all misfits.
Yeah.
And what I want to know from you is what makes you different? What makes you the odd duck that made you stand out?
I don't know. I think, well, the only explanation I can come up with is it's been part of the plan. Like
Mhm.
how my life is played out is part of my plan. And uh, part of everyone's plan is getting you to your real true purpose in life. And if you don't face any adversity, then I don't think you're going to fulfill your purpose in life, because I think everybody's purpose has some sort of give back or helping or whatever it is. I think that's, standard among people in the circles that I, sort of roam around in now, is that um, everybody has faced some sort of adversity in life, whether that's physical, emotional, spiritual abuse of some sort,
Mhm.
and then, that takes us, down a crazy sort of path. And then, we're faced with the ultimate decision. Am I going to die or am I going to live?
Mhm.
Right. And I would say the majority of people want to live. They just don't know how to do it.
Right.
And I think that's where people, like me come in, that have had all these experiences and taken taken the adversity and turn it into something positive and explained it to people differently.
Mhm.
That, the reason why this happened to you was it's part of your plan so that you can get to, this place. Because, my story is your story and your story is my story. That's what I've figured out in all of this. And that the common theme is some sort of, you know, adversity,
Mhm.
right? And some people succumb to the adversity and other people get through it, find their purpose, and then, and then give back
Right.
in whichever way, shape, or form that looks like. And so, so yeah, to answer your question, it's part of the plan. Uh, you know, hang on, I got this great little app on my phone that keeps track of when I started this journey. So 5,756 days ago, I hit my knees in a washroom and I surrendered.
Mhm.
Okay. And I gave up control of my life and I turned it over to something greater than myself. And almost from the moment I did that exercise, my life got better. Right. And so, because up until that point, I was running my own life.
Right.
And when I run my own life, it is the biggest shit show on the planet. Right. Or I always say, when I drive the bus always crashes.
Right.
But 5,756 days ago, I decided to sit in the passenger seat and let whoever it is run, drive the bus. And since that happened, you know, I have the greatest life you can possibly imagine.
I have one of my favorite lines of all time is, "You want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans."
Mhm.
Right. And so,
Yeah,
so my next question,
absolutely.
my next question I have for you, Theo, is, when's the last time, or can you remember a time where someone did something for you that left an impact on your life?
Yeah, there's lots of people that, you know, um, that do lots of really great stuff for me all the time. But you know what? Because I've had a trauma experience, I've been left with I'm not good enough. Okay. And I would say 99.9% of the people I work with have the I'm not good enough.
Hmm.
Right. And And so I still battle with that piece, you know, where I don't think I deserve it, or I don't deserve this or that or whatever and all that. And so I would say uh, that's my biggest challenge is, you know, to be okay with other people doing nice things for me and acknowledging it and accepting it and believing it, you know, because, you know, my my trust was broken, you know, a long time ago.
Yep.
And so, you know, it's a wall that I will very quickly put up to protect myself, you know, in certain situations. But, you know, I'm a lot better than I was, you know, at the beginning of this. And acknowledging the fact that, you know, there's still more work to be done. You know, is important as well to acknowledge the fact that but yeah, there's been lots of like tons and tons of people who have helped me, you know, get to where I am today, you know, and you know, there's too many of them to name, you know,
Is there
because
one that stands out, Theo? Is there one that just pops like immediately right into your mind?
geez, well, I you know, there's a there's a lady from Siksika, which is a Aboriginal community about 40 miles east of Calgary, who used to bring kids to my hockey school when I had it in Calgary, and her and I became really great friends. And then I got traded from Calgary, and we lost touch. And then I moved back to Calgary, and then shortly after that, we sort of reconnected. And she was the one who really started me on this path of spirituality. And her name is Shield Woman, and I call her Grandma Ruth. And she introduced me to another guy named Arnold Mountain Horse, who is a medicine man, and and he lives 2 hours south of Calgary. And you know, I've become a really big sweat lodge guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he has, you know, he puts on sweat lodges almost once a week down in Cardston, Alberta, and so being able to hang around with him has been incredible. And then, you know, obviously the lady that helped me write the second book, Conversation with the Rattlesnake, Kim Barthel, has been, you know, probably one of the biggest change makers for me. And, um, you know, she helped rewire all of that trauma in my life and helped me see it in a different light and a different perspective. And, yeah, so I would say, you know, those three people. And then obviously my wife, you know, who is also a trauma survivor, and and we're doing this together, you know, and I think that's really important too, um, that we're working on this stuff together, you know, because
Absolutely.
she understands, she knows, yeah, it's been a real calming influence, you know, in my life as well.
That's awesome. I love that story, and I want to bring you up to speed now, Theo. On my next question really is the big one, and we're going to be a good steward of time here, right? So, what are you doing presently right now to better the pond? What are
Yeah.
you doing to make the world a better place?
Well, you know, when COVID hit, you know, I was traveling once a week somewhere in North America speaking or doing workshops or whatever. And then that all sort of came to a screeching halt. And so I really had to you know, transition quickly to online. And so I created a trauma transformation program online. And I think we have 200 members now. And, and twice a month I do an online group therapy session with all these people, and it's really it's an amazing group of people, and the transformation I've seen in, you know, 6 short months with people has been, overwhelming and heartwarming all at the same time. And so there's that. I've taken a couple of courses online to up my coaching, life coaching and sobriety coaching credentials as well. And so I have a bunch of clients that I work with one-on-one. Been doing a little bit of online stuff, speaking, but it's not the same as being, in a live audience. But yeah, so there's all that. The psychedelic world has been calling as well, and I really believe that that's the next level in mental health change. Is big pharma owns it owns mental health, and I really believe that they've been a detriment, not a problem solver. And so the psychedelic world, I really believe, is going to change the mental health space. And so I've been involved with a couple different companies there. But I'm always learning, I think, I'm always reading articles. I'm always reading stuff, watching documentaries, that kind of stuff to get myself more educated, because what I'm really good at is I'm really good at taking all of the science and being able to relate it in a way that people, understand, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's my greatest tool that I have. And yeah, I just trying to provide as much inspiration as I can through this probably the most difficult time that we've had in our lifetime. And, hopefully somewhere down the line here that, things will change, and, we'll get back to some sort of normalcy and sanity.
Oh, Lord, I hope so. When you're talking about psychedelics, are you talking like into plant medicines and
Yeah.
those lines?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's an interest of mine as well. So we share that.
Yeah.
So, again, being as a good steward of time. So I have one last question for you, Theo. Is if you were standing on top of a mountain and the whole world was intently listening to you, what would you say?
Wow. It's a big question. Well, I would say you can't change the past. So stop living in the past. And you can change the future, but it's really hard work. It's really, really hard work. And you can't do this alone. You need people to help you solve the biggest riddle, which is you, right? And that faith has to be a part of the equation. Believing in something greater than yourself can provide. I say spirituality is like a warm blanket, and when we need it, it's always there. We just have to ask. Ask and you shall receive, right? And God helps those who help themselves, right? And I wasn't helping myself at the beginning of this journey. And then, like I said, I surrendered, turned my will and my life over to the care of, God as I understand him. And have really, like, live your life one day at a time. That's it. You can't think about the future or the past. Don't think about the future. Just try to be as present as much as you can in the moment, because that's where all the gifts are, is when we're present and we can see things happen, right? Meditating and manifestation for me have been huge. It's part of my daily practice and routine, and like I said, it's given me so much hope, right?
Mhm.
And as somebody who sells hope every day, but um, I always say this all the time is that, if I had a business card and, Theo Fleury, and then my title
Mhm.
would be I collect people. That's what I do. And, when you turn the light bulb on for people, they never leave. They never leave you.
Mhm.
When you turn on that light bulb for them, they never leave. And so, um, you know, I've collected hundreds of thousands of people on this journey by just being honest, open, and willing. That's it, and, that's sort of a mantra in 12 step is openness, honesty, and willingness. Right.
Yeah.
And, um, and for me, the only thing I pray for every day is willingness. That's it. Willing to do whatever it takes to get better. And sometimes uh, I don't like what I get from the willingness part, but that's why I need people, right, to
Mhm.
bounce shit off of,
Right.
right, and talk to people and share feelings and share vulnerability, right?
Mhm.
And I think vulnerability is the key to all of this, because in 2009, the way that I wrote Playing with Fire was I wrote it in the most vulnerable way I possibly could. And what happened was it created a safe space for other survivors of sexual abuse.
Absolutely.
And, those people have sought me out as a safe person that they can tell the story to because, you know, I'm only here to listen. I'm not here to give advice. I'm not here to give you anecdotes or anything. You come to me with a plan, I will hold you accountable to that plan. But other than that, I'm just here to listen.
And that goes back to when you were a kid, because really what you're doing is passing the puck and letting them score.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's all
That's
comes
it.
back around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so
Well, you give people the opportunity to be successful, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
And that's what great leadership is. And, you know, I got to hang around the greatest leaders of our sport, and watch them and observe them, how they handled people and made them think that they were better than they were. Right. And that's what this is all about is taking somebody and giving them the opportunity to fulfill, their potential.
And that's what you're doing. So you learn from great leaders so that they can learn from you. And
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
I love
And
it.
the biggest thing is, uh, you, they have that saying, check your ego at the door,
Mhm.
check your ego at the door. Because what happens with ego is if you lead with ego, people will despise you,
Yeah.
dislike you. But if you lead with compassion, empathy, humility, all those things, people will follow you to the ends of the earth because they know it comes from your heart space, not your head space.
Absolutely. I
Right.
totally. You know what, Theo, I could talk to you for days. I could talk to you for days. And I know you got more podcasts to do today. So I'm not trying to catch you short, but being trying to good steward of time. We set this out before the podcast. So I do want to thank you, really, a heartfelt thank you for everything that you're doing. Thank you for passing the puck. Thank you for being the odd duck.
Mm.
Thank you for inspiring people. Thank you for your vulnerability to do what you're doing because it's very courageous and
Yeah. Well, thank you.
I
Thank you for that.
I highly respect that. Where can people go to find you, Theo?
My website is theofleury.life. And then I'm on 4 social media platforms: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Okay, so then just find you under Theo Fleury.
At Theo Fleury 14.
At Theo Fleury
Yeah.
14. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. One last question for you, because you're in 3 different provinces, right? Before we head out, right? Is it Bomber fan, Rider fan, or Stamps fan?
Oh God. Well, what was interesting when I lived in Manitoba, the Bombers won the Grey Cup.
Yeah.
When I was in Saskatchewan, they won the Grey Cup, and then obviously I was a season ticket holder to the Calgary Stampeders when Doug Flutie and Alan Pitts and the boys were lighting it up here in Calgary, and so um, I'm good friends with Bo Levi Mitchell because he shares a love of golf with me, and so. I'm a Stamps fan now, but that could change, at any moment.
Well, if the Grey Cup follows you, I just really could come back to Saskatchewan. That's all I ask.
Yes.
That's all I ask.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. I'd
All
have to
right, there
coach.
you have it,
I'd
folks.
have to coach the Moose Jaw Warriors or something,
There
maybe.
you go. Exactly. Nah, we'll come back to the Pats. So,
Well, that would be interesting.
wouldn't it? Well, we had a great time today, Theo. Again, I said, honestly, I could talk to you for days. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Thank you for making the world a better place. Thank you for putting yourself out there, because, as I said earlier, it's very courageous. And please keep doing what you're doing, because you are making a difference in people's lives.
Well, he's running the show, not me. So all
Right.
all praise to God on this one.
Perfect. So this is Warren Barry, and I'm flocking off to take you beyond the pond to better the pond, because we're better together. Thank you so much, Theo.
Thanks, bud. You take care.